Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app. And, of course, streaming live on YouTube at The Fan KLGN. That's where you can find video of us streaming all of our shows. However you're listening, glad to have you on, and we're glad to have Eric Frandsen back.
Hello.
We had to go with some guest hosts. JD and Ajay filled in admirably, but we got to bring back Eric eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Got to bring back the old horse. But.
He is the boss. Like, he gets the spot on the show. There's not really anything I can do about that.
I only created the show just so I could make sure I have a spot on the show.
Basically. So glad you enjoyed your time in Vegas. Hopefully you didn't blow your life savings while you were down there.
You told me to put it all on red, and it only came up on black. So
well,
I blame you.
You misheard me then. I said to bet it all when you were playing blackjack, because that's an actual game of skill.
Your odds are best with blackjack.
Well, if you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing.
Of course, if you know what you're doing with blackjack, you're liable to just get kicked out of the casino, because they don't like it when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then they don't make money. But a lot to talk about today with, we got to hear Eric's thoughts on, so we're going to rehash some of the topics we've been going over the last few days, because now we got to get Eric's take on them. I've talked to death about some of these things. We'll kind of get Eric's thoughts on some of these, while also keeping in mind some of the latest updates. There's been some more commitments of Pac-12 players to other schools, more outgoing. There haven't been as many incoming commits that I've noticed, although I'm pretty sure there's a couple that I do need to update. There are no new commits for the Aggies. They've had some players on visits, so there will probably be some commits, assuming those visits go well and they manage to hang on to these players. Those would likely come in over the weekend, so we've got a little bit of a gap here. We're kind of in the roller coaster mode where it's like you get some commits, then there's visits, then there's commits, and so there's like 4 or 5 day gap sometimes in between commits, but they'll like come in bunches. So that's something that we're seeing a bit with Utah State right now. So we're kind of in one of those gaps right now, but I've been hearing some names that have been coming to visit Utah State. It'll be interesting to see which of those players end up committing. Well, one of the lead topics here, and we've got a couple of texts on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. If you want to join in on any of these conversations, text 435-339-0321. And 1818 on the text line saying, Jason, you've talked about the eligibility question a lot recently, and one thing I've been curious about is what happened to grad transfers. I could have sworn in years past players would play 4 years and then potentially play another year as a grad transfer. Is my memory wrong? And so we have a couple of texts on the eligibility question. There's a bigger push toward this 5-and-5 model, 5 years to just play. You get
5
that's
years
what
to
you
play
get.
5. Yep.
That's it. And if you can play all 5 years, great. If you can't, then and there's also an age aspect to it where it's like 5 years from like high school graduation or from like your 19th birthday or like the year where your 19th birthday happens. So that also kind of puts a cap where like you're pretty much maximum 24 years old in college. Some exceptions allowed for military service, pregnancy for obviously female athletes, and then religious service. And so that, 2-year missions for the LDS Church would receive an exception. But in specific regards to the question from 1818, yes, that was a thing that we saw a lot of. It is still happening. It gets really muddied because the biggest problem that I run into is not knowing who's eligible and who has eligibility remaining, and the various different kinds of ways that players are getting a 5th or 6th or 17th year. I don't always know what's up. You can tell there's some grad transfer players because on a lot of roster pages, the player will be listed as a graduate student. Like instead of saying, freshman FR, SO, JR, senior SR for all those different classes, it'll say GR. For instance, I believe Drake Allen was classified as a graduate student last year. Now there are still graduate students around, and there is some nuance to them. For instance, graduate students actually don't have to enter the portal. For instance,
Right.
Damari Wheeler Thomas, I think his name was, a guard from North Dakota State, I believe. He committed to Boise State. He actually committed to Boise State before the portal opened and was in the portal before it opened. He was allowed to do that because he's a graduate student. And for instance, Spencer Petras was the same way. He was actually, working on, I think he committed to the Aggies outside the portal window, but if not, like he'd been working with Utah State and working to commit to them. He kind of decided a while before he committed to the Aggies. Like he decided early in the season that he was going to go to Utah State. So he was a grad transfer, and so there's a bit of nuance there. So grad transfers still do exist. They're just kind of hard to notice in the sea of all the eligibility stuff that we have going on.
Yeah, you're right. It is because everybody's transferring. Everybody's a transfer.
So they're not like.
So it's not as notable when somebody finishes their 4 years of normal eligibility and they graduate, but then they can be a graduate transfer.
Yeah. So like Carson Templin, I believe, could be a graduate transfer.
Morphed. Yeah, but it's like, so graduate transfers, do they still exist? Yes, for now. But this 5 and 5, does that change that? Probably, but I don't know. I haven't seen the language. But that seems to indicate like, look, you've got 5 years to play 5 seasons. And if it's with 5 different schools, then it's with 5 different schools. If it's with one school, whatever. But you got 5 years. No more like appeals for additional eligibility because you were at that school at that division or this school and that level. It's like, this is your eligibility clock. It is what it is. And we are going to set more specific parameters and guidelines, and we're going to stick with it. And I do like that they have some exceptions that are carved out for really good reasons. But we're getting to the point where money in college athletics is to a point where there's a lot of guys that it makes sense for them to stick around collegiately rather than test the NBA waters or the professional waters. Maybe they make it. A lot of them won't. But there's the allure of making money if you go pro. You can still make a good amount of money if you stay in college. In fact, you might make more. And so some guys are like, well, I need to keep appealing for more years because this is as good as it's going to get for me. But the NCAA is like, look, we've got to have some guidelines here on when people can and cannot play. So I appreciate this. I think it's a good move. I think you will still see some older players, but you won't see as many of them. How this changes just recruiting out of the portal versus recruiting high schools, I don't think it really changes that. But it does, I think, limit guys from bouncing around forever and seemingly staying on a college campus well beyond the intentioned time that they should be.
Yeah, well, I think, this new eligibility rule. Now, there is some real possibility for some crazy, chaos to happen if this isn't implemented properly. And to give the context of why we're specifically bringing it up today, we're not bringing it up out of blue. It's because there is some news in that Charlie Baker is essentially trying to get it pushed as emergency legislation as soon as this next month, May. So we could have this implemented by next month if Charlie Baker gets his way, which he doesn't really get his way much anymore these days. So we'll see. But I think there's a lot of support for this because of how insane eligibility has gotten. And this mold is really it's as far as ideas that the NCAA has come up with, it's probably one of the better ones they've had, where this provides a stabilizing force. It removes ambiguity. Well, do you get an extra year because you had mental health problems, or were you just kind of, had a minor depressive episode, or did you have crippling mental health issues that held you out for an entire year? Did you actually have a serious season-ending injury, or was it one where you were a freshman, you were going to redshirt anyway, but you hurt your knee, and that doesn't count as a redshirt because I was injured. And so you have all this ambiguity, and So the NCAA is just saying, look, you get 5 years. And then it also adds on top of that this, kind of trying to provide a anti-25-year-old European coming over to play college ball type of situation.
Yeah,
where,
we saw New Mexico.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to have these guys saying, well, I never...
Tomislav Bojan was a 24-year-old freshman.
It's like saying, I never played college, but I'm going to come over and play 4 years of college ball. And then you have to figure out, like, is he actually eligible? And trying to figure out all these equivalencies and just say, look, while there is an inevitable professional influence coming to college sports, especially college basketball and football, you can at least keep it in the realm of where college sports is meant to be, 19 to 24-year-olds. And the exceptions that they have, they're good exceptions, but it's something I've said before. They are incredibly well-defined and incredibly specific scenarios. You can't pretend that you were pregnant.
Yeah.
You can't pretend that you went on a mission trip. You can't say, well, I went to Grand Canyon for a year. That counts as religious service, right? You can't fake that kind of stuff. You can't be ambiguous about that kind of stuff. Or military service. Like, although, I don't know, do people at the military academies?
If you're the academy. Well,
but I think in that case, it's more like military service as in you went overseas or you were active military, which is obviously very different from attending a military academy.
Yeah, because there was now I can't remember his name. There was a running back at University of Utah who, out of high school, because financially and a lot of other reasons, it made more sense for him to go into the military. But after he had done his active duty, he wasn't that old, but he still wanted to give college football a try, and it turned out to be a very successful running back. But he was like a 21-year-old freshman who had no previous eligibility problems, and but he had served in the military and came and became a running back and an outstanding running back for the University of Utah. But you're right. This is one of the things that's here, and I'm just getting into some of the details as you were talking, but they're hoping that they're going to discuss it in May. They're going to vote on it in May, so it could be implemented as soon as June. So players who graduated this year could be eligible for one more year. So MJ Collins, for example, out of eligibility as of right now, but if this passes, he could, if he wanted, play another year. So he could stay at Utah State. He could go somewhere else. But the real challenge here is that a lot of rosters are filling up. So by the time this is voted on, how many roster spots will be available for these guys? And if you're building a roster, do you hold out a spot or two just in case so you can get a very seasoned, experienced player to add to your roster? So it puts coaches in kind of an interesting situation where they're trying to fill their rosters now, but realize there may be a chance I can get a veteran on my team. I want to leave that chance open.
Yeah, and I think the NCAA really needs to get ahead of this because they either need to very clearly say, hey, this is going to apply to current players that are just graduating, or they need to say this only applies to players, starting in August, essentially. Saying, look, if you graduated this past, May, or, players, graduations are about to come up for colleges in April and May. Say, look, if you graduated in April and May and you ran out of eligibility under the old rules, then this doesn't apply to you. Players like MJ Collins, Zach Keller is another one where he played 4 seasons in 4 years. He would get another year of eligibility. Carson Templin, although he's only played 3, but he's 3 years to play 3. He would actually get a 5th year in this case, although Mason Falstaff probably wouldn't because he'll be playing his 5th year.
Yeah, he already had a redshirt year, but then he's also, at this point played. So
yeah, so
it's a tricky deal.
Yeah, but and I think for the reasons you pointed out, there are going to be coaches who, maybe they're holding back filling out their rosters, and they're holding back NIL funds for the hope of nabbing a 5th-year senior, and it's going to be a lot of them. And there are a lot of players who are entering the transfer portal right now. MJ Collins has entered the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Zach Collins has entered the transfer portal, or at least they say that they have. And they're entering in hopes that this rule will apply to them. And the NCAA needs to get out ahead of it. And I don't know which direction they want to go. Do they want to include all these players? That's a lot of chaos, but maybe that's something they would ultimately want to do. Or they need to be very clear and just say, look, it doesn't apply. So don't leave coaches in limbo. And the way you do that, obviously, you're not passing it until May at the earliest. You're not implementing it until, again, May at the earliest, or perhaps June or July.
Yeah.
But you can signal and say, hey, we're discussing this, and if it passes, this is what it will look like. Be very direct with coaches and with compliance, with all these different universities. Be specific. If it passes, this is who the rule will apply to. It either will or won't apply to all these players who are kind of in limbo. Get that message out to them now so that they know what to prepare for. If it would give them another year, guys like MJ or Zach, another year kind of out of the blue, signal that to them and say, hey, look, it hasn't passed yet, but, this is something that seems pretty likely to pass, and you should probably prepare for it. And coaches, you go ahead and kind of recruit for these guys and maybe expect to bring them onto your rosters because we'll be passing this by June or July. Or you say, look, even if we do pass this, these guys aren't going to be eligible. Don't recruit them. Players who are wanting an extra year, we're sorry that you're right on the edge of this and you're the ones who are this close to maybe getting another year. It sucks, but we kind of have to do it this way because that's what we've decided. We want the least amount of chaos in recruiting, but this is where we've drawn the line. We're sorry. Please move on with your lives. Go pro, go do whatever. So they need to be very clear. And from what I've looked up, nobody's been clear, at least from what I've searched around trying to find, people who have said this is how it would work if they implement this. It seems like it hasn't been clear from what I've read, though. If somebody has read something like that and it's been clear what they plan on, please let me know. I just haven't seen it yet.
According to a statement from Charlie Baker in Sports Illustrated, he says, almost everybody I've talked to has said it's simpler and it's easier to understand if it returns college athletics to the same window that college is supposed to be attached to. It makes it harder for somebody to show up at the age of 19 or 20 or 21 and claim to be a freshman after playing 3 years of professional sports somewhere else. There's a lot of things people like about this.
Yeah. I agree that it simplifies it. It is, and also the aspect of we're turning it to the window where college sports is supposed to be. If you're a 24-year-old trying to get into college sports, I'm sorry, that window really should have passed you by. Go play semi-pro somewhere or literally pro. If you're coming from Europe, either go to the NBA or be in the pro circuit and semi-pro circuit in Europe. College sports is for college-age athletes, and college-age athletes are 18 to 24, 18 to 25. 99.9% of athletes in college should be between the ages of 18 and 25.
Early 20s. Beyond that, then
there need to be some exceptions rolling around here.
Yeah. So it's I like this. I like that there's the exceptions that are built into it. Whether an athlete internationally is curious about playing in the United States, they've got to get on the clock a lot quicker because they may come over here and only have 2 years of eligibility.
Yeah. Well, it's not fair for
even if it's their first time on a college campus. It's based on your age, you only have X number of years of eligibility. Yeah. So we're probably going to get out of this mindset of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, whatever. It's just 1 year eligibility, 2 year eligibility, 5 year eligibility.
Honestly, I've started going to that when I talk about eligibility and breakdowns and things like that.
When you're done, you don't graduate. You're just out of eligibility.
Yeah, I've had to go away from graduating because half the players on your team have already graduated. And it's just a matter of do you have 1 year of eligibility or 2 years? Or that's what I put in a lot of my newcomer breakdowns. I say, well, they're classified as a junior, but just to be specific, this is how many years of eligibility I think they have left based on what I've researched.
Make it easier.
So although that may end up changing, depending on if and kind of when they end up applying this new rule. We've got a few more texts rolling in, but we've got to get to our first break here on the Full Court Press. We'll come back. We'll continue this topic. We'll also begin rolling into kind of some of Eric's thoughts on some of the recent signings, guys like AJ Bates, Solomon Callahan. I'll also talk about some of the players who may have been on visits with Utah State. So we'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press. Bike Night is back at Young Power Sports Logan, April 24th, so tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m. I believe it's 8 to 6 p.m. Okay, it says later in the ad read. Harley Hooligans, stunt show, live music, food, and prizes. Make sure you don't miss it. Kick off your weekend at Bike Night. Again, tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m.
All bikes welcome, by the way.
Yeah, all bikes welcome. So if I sold my e-bike a while ago. If I showed up in my e-bike, would that be a...
You might get looked down upon by a few that are there, but I'm sure you'll be welcome.
Still classifies as like a motorized scooter, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Semi-motorized.
Yeah, if you're not doing it by your own power, then you're probably just fine.
Yeah, so just like... So let's get to the Young Power Sports Logan text line. 2444 asking, which players has Utah State had on visits lately? They had a kid from College of Southern Idaho, which is weird because I'd heard a rumor that he was, I can't remember where I heard the rumor, but somebody had seen him at Utah State. And it was weird because he played at College of Southern Idaho. And I had just finished watching Sean Felt's film where Snow College was playing College of Southern Idaho. And I was like, oh, let me go back and watch this real quick to see this kid. He's like a 6-foot guard. It's like Ace Reiser, I think was his name. It's like a 6-foot guard. It's a bit undersized, but put up a lot of points. He scored 24 points in the game in question. Haven't gone back to fully watch him because he hasn't committed to the Aggies. I don't know if he will, so I'm not going to do any in-depth film on him, but it was interesting seeing
small.
Yeah, that coincidence. Yeah, 6 foot. Like it's small, but it's not bad. Like if you can ball out, then being 6 foot's not bad at the college level. Like, sure, it limits some of your versatility, but like you can still be pretty great. I mean, Stephen Ashworth was 6'1".
Yeah.
So he was small.
Tennant kid down at New Mexico.
Yeah, you're right. Tennant. He's what, 5'10", I think.
Yeah.
5'10", 5'11", or. I think he was listed under 6 foot.
He's under 6 foot. But he's a gamer.
So like, unless you're like 5'7", 5'8", not really that concerned if you're undersized. So long as you can actually play point guard, that's usually the big key. Is because if you're like under 6'3", you're pretty much limited to being a point guard, or you better have somebody who can play point guard on the court. And I think the kid they brought in, he should be able to play that position. Of course, they still have AJ Bates there. We'll get to him in a second because I want to hear Eric's thoughts, though we have a few more texts kind of on the eligibility topic that we want to get to. 1818 saying, man, I hope this doesn't impact last year's roster. For one thing, it causes so much chaos. Selfishly, I wouldn't want it to happen because I want MJ Collins' final year to be with us. Yeah, because even though MJ Collins could theoretically stay at Utah State, I very much think he would go directly to Cincinnati.
His value is high.
Yeah, and he would, it was like with Ian Martinez, like he would have gone somewhere else, largely because he could have gotten paid. And I don't think Aggie fans would have blamed Ian Martinez had he gotten that extra year of eligibility, and nobody would particularly blame MJ Collins for going and getting his bag. So it's basically the only one of his career. He never really got paid by anybody. He wasn't really getting paid much, if anything, really by Utah State, but he would be able to go out there and get a pretty big bag from somebody, possibly Cincinnati or somebody else.
9315, will this be the start of the thing with the NCAA where they will eventually get to there will be limits on how many transfers you can do and so on? I don't know. I know there are some who are proposing that, who would like to see that. Tommy Tuberville was trying to say it should go back to you only have one transfer. That's going to be hard. I don't know how you pull that off now. Yeah. The genie's out of the bottle. I would like to see something where, I don't know, some transfer fee or something like that, where if you're at a place like Utah State and you end up going to Kentucky has to pay you something to get that player, but that would imply that there are contracts and players are, it's a enforceable contract, a legal document that you sign a contract and you'll be here for X amount of years. That just takes it to another step of professionalism. But why would players do that when they can have free movement right now? I don't know how players would agree to that. So I don't know if that will happen. I know there are a lot of people who are pushing for that and would like to see that. Maybe this 5-for-5 helps get it closer to that, but I kind of doubt it at this point. It's just been going a little bit too long, and I just don't know how you put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, so I'll say this because, and we've actually got some breaking news coming through. We'll get to in a second, but and I saw this from I think it was one of the lawyers that's pretty active on social media, especially with regards to college. I think it was Matt Winter, or I may be saying his name wrong, but they had a great point where there are so many people who are trying to borrow your phrase, put the genie back in the bottle, where they say, we want to go back to one transfer. It was a thing that Donald Trump was trying to do. It's things that had been suggested over and over. Every time you're asking a coach or former coach or saying, I wanted to go back to, you get one transfer. And they always present it as if it's this genius idea and it's what we should be doing. And I can't believe no one else is bringing this up. And it's this amazing idea. This is definitely what should happen. And they're almost acting like it's the only obvious choice and that nobody else has brought it up. The reason it doesn't get talked about, they usually don't use those words, but the tone kind of ends up bringing that across. You cannot go that way. That was a legal battle that was lost. You cannot re-implement that. It cannot happen, and people really need to just move on. The only way you get back to a situation in which there is a hard limit on the number of transfers, Eric, you know what I'm about to say.
Collective bargaining.
Exactly.
But the players, what's their incentive to even do that?
Yeah,
they don't have an incentive.
Yeah, there's no incentive. So
right now, why would players want to do anything different? Because their value keeps going up 50 to 100% every year off season. You can have unlimited movement. And why would you vote for things that would restrict those two things as a player?
So the only way
you wouldn't.
Yeah, the only way you can collectively bargain is you would then have to give up a concession that is something that is incredibly valuable that overrides obviously the fact that, as you pointed out, their value keeps going up. They get unlimited movement. Everybody enters the transfer portal every single year. Even if they don't necessarily have intention of leaving, you'll have guys that enter the portal as a negotiating tactic.
Yeah, just to assess my value for the folks that are right here in front of me right now.
Yeah, so they're inflating their own value. Everyone's overpaying them, and it's a runaway system. You cannot put that back in the bottle without going to collective bargaining because you lost that legal battle in court. And I guess unless you can get Congress to pass something, but a lot of I'll say it's mostly on the liberal side, but there's not unanimous support in Congress for any sort of, re-restricting these things with the transfer portal. So you're not getting something from Congress. The president can pass whatever executive orders he wants. They're going to get smacked down in court the second the NCAA tries to follow them. You cannot put this back to a one transfer, per career system without going with some collective bargaining. So every time that possibility gets brought up, just immediately dismiss it because it's not happening without the kind of massive steps toward a collective bargaining that the NCAA nor the athletes are willing to take because neither see that as a viable. The NCAA is terrified of that because it means making players employees, and the players have no incentive to be restricted like that because they benefit incredibly financially from this.
I empathize with institutions who are like, we recruit these guys, we invest in them literally with finances, but also invest time and training, get them on the court, we develop them, we highlight them. And we're pouring a lot into them just to want to see them grow and see a future with them, with our university and our institution. But after a year, they're gone. And so we have to do this all over again. So I empathize with an institution, a team, trying to keep their guys together because there's value in that. But how are you going to convince players collectively, thousands of them across the country, that makes sense for them? Like, I understand from the institution's point of view why there's value in that. But by the players, it has to be for an agreement, both parties have to agree. And I just don't see the incentive for players. I'd love to see it change. I would. But I don't see how players, if they were a collective body, because right now they're not, but if they were, I don't see how they would agree to those terms.
Yeah. A few more texts, then we'll actually hit a break before getting to some breaking news. Let's see. 7168 asking, is the 5x5 rule only applicable to basketball? I believe it would be for everything.
I think it's for everything in college athletics.
Yeah. Yeah, so I believe it would be for...
Whether you're a tennis player, basketball player, pole vaulter, whatever.
It should be kind of nice for them, because those are a lot of sports where, a lot of them would get an extra year to participate, where a lot of times there's not as much red shirting, but like those are sports where they're pretty regularly only getting 4 years.
Right.
And now they're all getting a fifth year and, scholarships and all that. So that would be something that would benefit them in addition to clearing things up for obviously basketball and football, where a lot of the craziness happens because there's not as much incentive for a tennis player to fight tooth and nail and pay for lawyers to get a fifth year of tennis, because it's like you're not getting paid any NIL. But for a football player, like that is a potentially like $3 million question for a lot of these athletes.
2305, doesn't Bronco have a rule if you go in the portal, you don't come out of the portal back to Utah State for football?
Blake did. I don't know if Bronco does.
I don't remember Bronco saying that. I remember Blake kind of had that mentality, though he used that. He had one of his players in the portal when he got here, and he convinced him to stay. Yeah, well, but then after that, things changed.
Yeah, that one made sense because like when he just got here, but then like that was a policy for a while. But then he broke his supposedly this rule that he had because Rasul Faison went in the portal and he came back. Mm-hmm. So it didn't seem like a hard, fast rule for Blake, even though that was supposedly the rule for him.
I don't remember Bronco being hard and fast ruled that way. I don't recall.
I'd have to go back and see if anybody's entered the portal and come back out of it during the, granted, Bronco Mendenhall era has lasted 18 months, so we haven't had much sample size. And it's fairly rare for football players to enter the portal. And like it's happened quite a bit actually in basketball. I don't feel like I've seen it nearly as much in football, where they enter the portal and then come back. Although it has happened in football, obviously.
8968, for what it's worth, I would not want government involved in sports.
Yeah, I typically don't either. The only thing I want involved in the government sometimes is having a government job can be nice, but other than that, you don't really want the government involved in anything you do.
No.
So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll have breaking news. 1818. Thank you for letting me know. I didn't notice this until I saw your text. But the Aggies, I said we're in between times when the Aggies are getting commits. But guess what? Somebody has committed to the Aggies.
Roster's filling up.
Yeah, another spot. So we'll get to who that is, and we'll maybe break them down a little bit more coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. Breaking news, probably as I finished up talking about this young man and the fact that he visited Utah State, Ace Reiser posted on his Instagram that he is committing to Utah State. He'll play basketball for the Aggies this upcoming season. Freshman going on sophomore this upcoming season. Played at the College of Southern Idaho last year. Freshman All-American at the junior college ranks. Averaged 15.1 points, 5.1 rebounds, 3.9 assists. For the team. He's a native of Utah.
Yeah, South Jordan native. For Ben Jacobson not being from around here, he's getting guys with ties to the state.
Yeah, got a couple
more so than the previous coach did.
Yeah.
This is a smaller guy, only 6 feet tall, under 165 pounds. He's not that old, but this was a guy who, at his level, he produced. He scored. He was able to, even though he was only 6 feet tall, he chased rebounds, almost 5.5 rebounds a game. So it tells you that this is a guy who has a nose for the ball. Those are likely coming off of longer shots, but this is somebody who's not, shy from mixing it up. 4 assists per game, 2.5 steals per game. This is like a true point guard that Utah State has been looking for. How that fits in. Who's really going to be holding those point guard duties? Will it be him? Will it be Solomon Callahan?
Callahan's not a point guard.
This
AJ
is
Bates is probably the one you were thinking of.
AJ Bates, yeah, I guess he's probably more the point guard mold, but this is more of a true-ish point guard that Utah State has been looking for. How many? We only have 4 spots left to fill?
Yeah, that makes 4 spots. I haven't had the chance now to update my transfer tracker, but yeah, I believe they had 10 filled, and so this will make for 4 players left. So they were talking yesterday, the last couple of days, about the need for a backup point guard. Now, at this point, pick your fighter, because you have AJ Bates coming from Louisiana Tech, a guy who averaged 6 assists per game, pick and roll. Great pick and roll passer. I was starting to dip my toes into some AJ Bates film now that I finally finished the Sean Feltz breakdown that'll be coming out. I pass over to you, Eric. Is it coming out?
Yes, it's coming out later today.
Yeah, so later this evening you'll be able to read my thoughts about Sean Feltz. And so I began looking into AJ Bates, a little bit of film. His pick and roll stuff is phenomenal. Haven't really looked at Ace Reiser yet. Again, beside the fact that I was like, oh, he visited Utah State. Let me go back and watch 5 minutes. Rewatch some of the when Sean Felt's Snow College team played College Southern Idaho. But just my impression, and this comes largely from the statistics, I haven't done much more than watch 5 minutes of film, and 5 minutes of film where he actually didn't do much. He scored 24 points in the game that I was watching, but the portion I watched, I don't think he actually scored. So I watched the boring part of the game for him. But statistically, the profile kind of speaks to just high volume shooter. I also love the efficiency. Like when I talked about AJ Bates, loved his pick and roll passing. His scoring, even in the pick and roll, was his efficiency numbers were ugly, to put it bluntly. 37%, sub 30% from 3. Ace Reiser, now this is the junior college level, and these numbers can end up going down significantly, because it can be easier for players to put up these kind of efficiency numbers, but 49.5% as a 6-foot guard. How do you manage to shoot that efficiently? Because your options as a 6-foot guard are to shoot at the rim where there's a bunch of 6'10", 6'11" guys that you got to shoot around or over. That's going to lower your efficiency. Or you shoot floaters and, outside of the restricted area shots, and those are just inherently less efficient. Whichever one of those options he's picking, I'm going to find out a little bit more about which options he's picking once I watch some more film on him to see exactly what his shot profile is. But either way, he's found a way to be incredibly efficient on what are, at least for a 6-foot guard, less efficient shots. But along with that, Dude shot 46% from three on 4.5 threes per game. You know, if a player shoots 46% and they shoot 1 3 per game, it's like, okay, you made one wide open 3-pointer, you know, every other game. You know, Carson Templin, he shot 40% from three during 40% from three during conference play. But that was on like 1 3-pointer every other game. If you're shooting 4 or 5 3-pointers per game, you're not shooting wide open ones. You're not shooting just catch and 3 ones. You're shooting movement threes, you're shooting step back threes, you're shooting sidestep threes coming around to pick, and you know the guy goes under the screen and you pull up from three. All of those are difficult shots. You are taking more difficult 3-pointers and you're still hitting 46%. Like league average for college basketball, I don't know what it is for junior college, but for Division I college basketball, average is 34.5%. And you're shooting more, like 12% higher than league average on that volume, where a lot of your 3-pointers are going to be difficult. That is like sniper levels of shooting.
Yeah, this is a guy who, and again, I'm learning a little bit about him. You're ahead of me on this. But,
only a little bit.
But this is a guy who is recognized as a junior college All-American, not a freshman All-American.
I thought it was freshman All-American.
He was an All-American. Who also turned out to be a freshman. There were only 7 freshmen. There were 30 players who received the recognition, and 7 of those 30 were freshmen. He was one of them. So,
it would be weird to have a freshman All-American for a level of basketball where there's only 2 classes.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But this. So there's some metrics again. I'm just seeing this as you all are seeing this. I haven't really done any film or anything on this, but there seems to be some things that are interesting about this player. Undersized. I would prefer that no one on the roster is smaller than 6'2". I mean, ideally, I would prefer that no one on the roster is smaller than 6'3". I like having bigger guards.
Eric's like a girl on Tinder. He likes everyone's got to be 6'3" or taller.
Yeah, that's right. No, because I think you want to have a length advantage at every position if you can, and having a 6-foot guard on the court could put you at a disadvantage on the court with an opposing player. So I prefer having a lineup that has a size advantage at every position if possible. But if you can play past that with speed and efficiency, it doesn't matter. It's not like it's this huge gap.
Yeah.
An inch or two is not necessarily this massive gap. But the numbers look good. But junior college player, not that far away where he played, grew up in the state, came from South Jordan. So there's certainly a strong connection regionally for that. But Utah State still has some needs that need to be filled on their roster. This looks like an okay piece. Maybe the more I look at it, I'm going to be like blown away. This will be an awesome piece. But I don't know that I'm blown away by this signing, but it seems like it's a solid piece to add to the roster at this point.
Yeah, he's a solid player. And like, I share some of your thoughts on as far as like, you want to have height, but if you're good enough to play the position, then that's something that's going to usually override this for me. Of course, if you're 6 foot, like, again, that's basically like the low end of where I would usually be comfortable for a college point guard. Like, I don't want them to be much shorter because then they're really having to outperform their size in order to perform. But players like that, they've done that. Like Jimmer was 6 foot, 6'1". There was a guy, I think last name was Howard. Can't remember his first name, but he averaged like almost 30 points a game for, I think it was a school out in the Horizon or something like that. But he was like 5'11", ended up trying to get to the NBA, couldn't quite do it. But if you have these skill, and especially the shooting, like that's usually kind of the trick is like, if you're that short, you got to be a dang good shooter. And it seems like that's what we have here.
Or you have really good handles where you can create space. Yeah. Like, cause
usually you got to have both, to be honest.
You juke a guy out and they're going one way or as you're going another. So you create space to take that advantage of that gap in space, in height.
Yeah. For the lack of height, you've got to make up for that with quickness. Obviously the ability to move with the ball. So the handles, as you mentioned, and then the shooting to make up for the fact that it's hard for you to shoot around the rim, which that's your most efficient shot. You generally don't get that as a smaller player. So you've got to make up for it in jump shooting. We got to take a break. We've got a few more texts rolling in, so we'll get to those as we continue this conversation next here on the Full Court Press.
Batteries, headlights, wiper blades, they're all in stock, and it's on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts stores, even air fresheners and shop towels. On sale at your locally owned Napa store from Preston to Providence.
So we've got a few texts rolling in on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Was 2305. What is the fellow's name again? And he's from a high school from Utah. So we're talking about Ace Reiser. It's spelled Reiser, Reiser. At least I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it.
But only Bingham. I found
was it Bingham?
Yeah.
Because I've got an Ace Reiser who played for Alta, whose timeline roughly matches up.
At least I'm looking at Bingham stats, and I just picked a random year, 2021, 2022.
He would have been like a... Yeah, I don't know, because in the picture that you don't always get a Max Preps picture, so I'm actually not 100% sure what high school he went to. It doesn't say on CSI's roster page. It says he's from South Jordan. Alta's not in South Jordan, as far as I'm aware.
The following year, he was not at Bingham.
Yeah, so like this one, it says he was at Alta his freshman, sophomore, and senior year. In his senior year, it says he averaged 13.9 points, 5.7 assists, and 3.8 rebounds.
Yeah, looks like I just found him in his 1 year.
Maybe he was 1 year at Bingham and then like went back to Alta or something.
I guess.
Just kind of interesting thing. Of course, in high school, he was listed at 5'11". At CSI, listed 6 foot, 165 pounds. And last year, averaging, again, I'm going to have to double check, 15 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds per game on just about 50, 40, 80 shooting. He's 49.5% from the field, 46% from three, and 81% on free throws. Another text, 9938, saying every roster needs players on the practice team. Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of these next few pickups are probably going to, like, with a lot of NIL having been spent on the players coming in, like they had to spend some money on Sean Feltz because he's 6'11" and has a pulse, therefore he's getting offered. And he got offered by Ole Miss, so they had to beat that. Mason and Carson both got paid pretty well.
The question is, will Jax Allen, is he going to redshirt? Will Jordan Boyd?
Yeah,
will he redshirt?
I think both of those players
somebody else redshirt.
Those players are fairly likely redshirts. Does Ace Reiser end up as your starting point guard? I would expect him or AJ Bates to be a starter, but I expect both to play a decent amount. They may end up splitting the point guard minutes, but that's an offseason battle we'll have. Which of those players ends up winning out there? And I don't know if we're going to see Utah State add too many more players that we should expect to be in the rotation. Because as I was kind of saying yesterday, most of their rotation is likely filled. But they still have 4 more guys to add to this roster. And while I think they will be guys with potential, you're only going to play like at most a 10-man rotation. And Utah State has 11 players on the roster now. So you're going to start seeing players who have some potential, but we might tentatively say they may not be in the rotation for next year. So that's something we'll begin keeping an eye on. So the Aggies rotation is probably mostly filled, but we'll see based on what other players they end up adding over the course of the next few weeks.
Still good players out there to be found.
Yeah, there definitely are. That's going to do it for us in the first hour. We're going to keep this conversation going. Also get some thoughts from Eric on other recent Aggie additions. Welcome back, everyone, to the Full Court Press second hour here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan. Streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube. And you can find us at The Fan KLGN. We've got some people on the YouTube chat that have been chatting. We got to get to a couple of those here as we begin the second hour. Been talking Aggie basketball and also eligibility. We started out talking about the potential 5 years to play 5 eligibility rule that could be coming into place this summer, with some questions on who it will impact. Like, a bunch of people are going to magically get another year. Are they going to cut it off? So that was kind of our first hour topic. But then talking about Ace Reiser, the latest Aggie commit coming from College of Southern Idaho. Am I supposed to say the College of Southern Idaho? Is this like the Delta Center situation where it's like, what is the proper way? Like, I'm not supposed to say UNR. I have to say Nevada.
CSI.
All this kind of stuff. CSI.
CSI.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to put it. But we were talking about that. Well, that's going to bleed a little bit over into this hour, because we're actually going to talk to Eric about some of the recent commits, get his thoughts, because he went gallivanting off to Las Vegas.
I know. I haven't had a chance to weigh in on any of this stuff.
He has a talk show, and he hasn't been able to use it to talk. So we do have a few texts from the chat. Beamer 85K100 on the YouTube chat telling me, my spies tell me Eric was at the hockey game in Las Vegas wearing a Golden Girls jersey.
Golden Girls.
You got caught.
So we...
Did you go to a Vegas game?
We get down there. We're in Las Vegas on Sunday. We had some meetings Sunday, and we were supposed to go to a reception, and we're like, oh, it's the Mammoth play, game 1 in their series. And like, oh, yeah. We got to find somewhere we can watch it. And then we're like, well, how stupid are we? Like, we are in Las Vegas, and the Mammoth are in Las Vegas. Why didn't we look about getting tickets? I much would have rather gone to the game than some...
Just go to some local bar.
Some sports book in a casino. And like, we were like idiots. We're like, we're here. Why weren't we thinking of this? So I could have gone to a game. It would have been cheaper to go to a game there.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's like half the price in Vegas than it is in Utah, just because obviously first time playoffs, they get a huge markup there.
But when we were watching, like, we were noting how many Utah Mammoth fans were in the arena. Like, there were quite a few. So it was pretty cool. Like, what a series. Game 1, back and forth. Looked like, they're playing like they want to win this thing. And then third period kind of gets away from them. But the second game.
Yeah, second game went a little bit better.
Yeah, that was exciting as well. So what a great start to the playoffs.
Yeah. So you got caught at a Vegas game. We had a texter catch me at a Maverick. Well, they didn't come and say hi. And
Well, I wasn't at the Vegas
I know.
game.
I don't know.
Wish.
Apparently, their spies saw you wearing a Golden Girls jersey. Also, Stockton Wright 5292 saying Ajay had his first Aggie ice cream today. We need a full breakdown from you guys on this. We got to have Ajay back on the show.
Yeah, we need him
to do a full review.
How that experience went.
He gave an in-depth review on social media, but I got to be like, hey, Ajay, I need the full details.
As long as he's been in this area claiming to have never tried Aggie ice creams, which is hard for me to believe. But today apparently was the day that he finally got introduced to Aggie ice cream.
Yeah. So. Also, we have ABC123, ABC99. A few different messages in here, although first I'll go slightly out of order for this. But one saying, be honest, no one puts together programming like the Las Vegas Knights. In qualifying, saying they're again, a Knights and Aggies fan. So I didn't.
It's watching it. I haven't been to a game there, but from what I have seen in some of their games, like there's a lot of production in that arena. When they are doing a game, like it is a production. That's a good way to put that.
Then a couple more messages. This I think came in while Eric, you were talking about wanting to have a little bit more length in your lineup, and adding, just saying +1, agreeing with your take, Eric. Then saying we have historically had issues versus P4 teams in length, mentioning Purdue, Missouri, and Washington come to mind in the NCAA tournament. Then also saying, did Carson grow an inch, or did we change our measuring tape? I see he's listed at 6'9" now. I'm going to go look at the roster. Is he really listed at 6'9"? I think he was listed at 6'8" last year. He is not 6'9". I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, I don't think he's 6'9".
From everything I've heard, and then I know there was a picture that was going around yesterday of them at the dinner with, again, I think it was President Mortensen. Yeah, he's listed at 6'9" now. He's not. I can tell you that right now. Kingston Tosi's listed at 6'8", so he also grew an inch. So did Mason. He's 6'3", and he's listed at 6'4". So yeah, I can tell you right now, Carson Templin, unless he really has grown an inch.
Got some new shoes that they're handing to players this year. I'll tell you this,
he's 6'7". So is Kingston Tosi. Jax Allen was saying he's 6'5", though he's listed at 6'4" on the Aggies roster. So yeah, basically everyone in the Aggie roster, if you look at their actual height, they're like 2 inches shorter than they are. Because like if we're going by basketball height, I'm 6'1". I'm actually close-ish to 6'1" if you measure me wearing my shoes, like my basketball shoes. Those add about an extra 1.5 inches of height. But I'm also not 6'1". So, but if I was being measured by basketball standards, I would be 6'1".
Yeah.
But that's the way it is with a lot of basketball. And last year, everyone grew an inch for the Aggies. Like if you look at the 2024-25 roster, Calhoun's first year, and then you compare that roster to the year after, basically everyone went up an inch in height. But yeah, so the heights are a little inflated.
The food and nutrition program at Utah State is for real.
Yeah, it's remarkable. Guys are growing 1 or 2 inches during their career with the Aggies. So I believe that's all the. Another text from ABC 123 saying, sounds like we measure our athletes like we measure Northern Iowa corn stalks and fish. Perhaps they just have generous measuring standards. So that's
it was this big.
It was this big. It's like retelling the story about the size of fish you caught. Every time you retell the story, it gets
a little bit bigger every time.
So let's talk about some of the players for the Aggies. 5338 texting this in. I'm also 6'4", signed Peter Dinklage. I was 6.4 inches maybe. But let's talk about some of these recent Aggie signings. Eric, you didn't have a chance to talk about AJ Bates, Solomon Callahan. I think they signed maybe while you were on your way down to Vegas over the weekend. So AJ Bates, 6'3" point guard coming from Louisiana Tech. Solomon Callahan, a 6'2" guard, kind of more of a shooting guard, but he's a sniper, 40% from three. I was going on about Ace Reiser, him shooting 46% on high volume. Callahan, I had a chance to actually watch some of the film of his three-point shooting, so I got to see the types of the threes he was taking. And that's a guy who's shooting, I think, not quite 40%, but it was like 39.5%, but on like 6 attempts per game. So high volume three-point shooting. And if you account for volume, currently one of the best shooters in the Pac-12. But your thoughts? I've given my thoughts on each of these two players.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited about AJ Bates. I think this is a guy who can. He should be the starting point guard. I think not only is he a distributor and appears to be creative on the court, but he can score. Like just this last March, I mean, look what this guy did to close out his season at Louisiana Tech. 27 points, 29 points, 34 points. In some of his last games in Louisiana, I can't speak, in a Louisiana Tech uniform, this dude scores. Like, he can make things happen. Now, is he going to need to have that same scoring punch for the Aggies? Yes and no. There might be times where Mason's going to be the guy that will do that. But Mason isn't always that guy every night, and he needs somebody else to carry the load. And AJ Bates looks like he is that guy. He's that wingman that can help Mason Fossliv. I wish he was, a scorer a little bit bigger, but like MJ Collins wasn't massive, and MJ Collins found ways to score and light things up for Utah State. So there's a lot of things that I like about AJ Bates. Now, he doesn't come from a Power 5 program. He doesn't maybe have that pedigree like some that we've seen come to Utah State. But some of these guys who are coming to USU, they come with experience and they know how to win and they know how to play well. Now, the junior college ranks, does that really translate to what's happening in the Pac-12. I don't know. I mean, Snow College had a great run, right? CSI
was also pretty high. CSI
really good basketball program.
Yeah, I mentioned watching CSI versus Snow College. CSI won that game. I should mention that.
So while these are junior colleges and Utah State got 2 players out of the JC ranks, these are guys that come from programs that know how to win. And winning matters. You have to know how to win a game. Now, I'd like to still see in the open spots that are available, if Utah State could find somebody that was coming from a Power 4 conference, a team, where they struggled to get on the court, limited opportunity, looking for a chance to blossom and showcase what they really can do. They really didn't have that opportunity somewhere else. Because Utah State has had a lot of success with that lately. Those guys are hard to find and hard to really determine, but I still think that's still a little bit of a piece that Utah State's missing. But a lot of what this roster is looking like has me excited. I have to remind myself it's tough to compare this roster as we know it now to what we just experienced at Utah State. And the biggest reason is because Coach Ben Jacobson, like the players that he's getting right now, for him, most of these guys are upgrades to what he's used to. But he doesn't really know what it's like to play in the Mountain West or the new Pac-12.
Yeah.
Jared Calhoun in his first year here, the guys that he got, those were upgrades according to Youngstown State.
Yeah, he was getting the best of the A-Sun.
But he didn't really know what he needed for the Mountain West or the new Pac-12. So I think when we look at Ben Jacobson and what he's doing, it's really unfair to compare him to what Jared Calhoun just did. I think if you really want to give this coaching staff a fair shake, look at what Jared Calhoun looked like in his first season. Because that's really what Ben Jacobson's going through right now. He wasn't at this level. He doesn't really know what the rosters look like that he's going to compete against a couple different times every year. So these players that he's getting, they are upgrades for him. But is he really aware of what's coming in the Pac-12? That's still a little bit be determined. I think he is getting some help on his coaching staff to help him understand that. He's getting some guys who are familiar with teams that are going to be in the new Pac-12. But I would still like to see the remaining roster spots that are still available. Another 6'6" to 6'8" wing, somebody who has P4 experience. If in those 3 or 4 roster spots still available, I'd like to see somebody that still fits that criteria.
Yeah, I think at this point where they've got most of their front court, they have 2 point guards. They're going to do battle. Exactly who ends up starting. I would lean toward AJ Bates. Like his production
over Ace.
Yeah, over Ace Riser. But I do. I'm maybe less excited about AJ Bates because I have some pretty
Allen
big
is in
concerns
the mix as well.
Yeah,
although he may redshirt.
He may redshirt, but like if you need him, you could pull a redshirt. I mean, especially if you get this 5 years to play 5 rule that passes, then there ain't no redshirt anyway.
Everybody's available.
Yeah, just play everyone, and that could be something where you end up having that depth and not have to worry about the complications of redshirts. So yeah, I'll be honest. My biggest concern with Bates just has to be his efficiency. Like he scored 12 points per game, but he needed 11 and a half shots to do it. Really hope that he improved that efficiency. I think, being able to come to an offense where he's not shouldering nearly as much of the load. He basically was Louisiana Tech's offense.
He had to put those shots up.
Yeah. So if he comes to a team where he only takes 7 or 8 shots, but can he still average like 9 or 10 points? If he cuts his shots in half and only, but it still only scores 9 or 10 points, like even if he lowers his points per game by 2 or 3, but if he cuts his shots in half, I'd be over the moon for the Aggies in that sense, because that would be a massive improvement to his efficiency. Or maybe he only cuts it down to like 9 or 10, because he may still need to take a bit of scoring load, because right now it doesn't seem like the Aggies have a really great kind of scoring deputy to Mason Falslev, that number 2. It honestly, the Aggies may end up being in a position where they have like 3 number 2s.
Yeah.
Because you have Will
More
Hornseth.
of a Moneyball approach. We're doing it in the aggregate.
Yeah, where it's like you have your 1 star. This is our go-to guy. And who's the number 2 for the night? Well, it depends on the matchup. It might be A.J. Bates. It might be, Will Hornseth. It might be, Sean Feltz on some nights. It could be
Carson Templin.
Yeah, it could be Carson Templin. Yeah, it could. Yeah, and that's something where we're not sure what we're going to get out of Braden Bowe and Kingston Tosi yet. One of those 2 players, I would not be all that surprised. Like if Jason from, February 2027 came in and said, hey, look, past Jason, Kingston Tosi is going to be the number 2 scorer on the Aggies next year. I'd be like, yeah, that kind of checks out. Mildly surprising. Maybe if you had put a gun to my head and told me to pick, I maybe wouldn't have picked him, but I wouldn't be that surprised.
No. And
same if you inserted Braden Bowe's, that same thing where it's like, yeah, I can see that. They have that talent. We just don't know exactly yet. But we saw Mason Falslev be like the 3rd leading scorer as a redshirt freshman. I can't remember where he might have been 3rd or 4th, depending on Darius Brown, but he was a double-digit scorer as a redshirt freshman. And I think Bowe or Kingston Tosi could both be that, depending on if one of them starts at that small forward spot, because that kind of seems to be the open spot in the lineup right now. There's not really an obvious pick for that spot. One of them could fit in there, depending on what transfers come in.
Yeah, right. But right now, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, now 7 players on this roster, 6'5" or shorter. So whatever happens to fill out the roster, they need to be 6'6", 6'8", in that range, because this team needs to have length. To be competitive in the Pac-12, you need length. If you want to go into the NCAA tournament and win a game or 2, you got to have length. And this team is a little short on that right now. I think they've got some stuff that can help them in the post, but getting length in the wings. Who's that small forward? Sometimes maybe play a power forward type position, but who's on the wings? Where's that length coming from to help you in a competitive conference, especially if you want to do some make some noise in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, that's where I'm kind of hoping that Ben Schweiger maybe gets another year and maybe comes to Utah State, because he's someone that fits that mold of like small forward, power forward, and has experience too. Like he's trying to get another year of eligibility. Obviously, he's got some years of experience.
Yeah.
He's someone that whether he starts or not, like you need someone, because Kingston Tosi is like someone of that mold, maybe this athletic wing. Like he is great for his versatility, because he has a level of versatility that nobody else on the roster has. He can play small forward, power forward, and he can switch on to 5s. I wouldn't play him at center, but like on a position, on a given possession, he could switch on to a 5, though there's not a ton of switching in this defensive system. So yeah, getting someone else, like even if they're only 6'5", like that's like tall enough to play small forward.
Yeah, I mean 6'5" is not the end of the world. If you have a number of guys at that position, it's just that, again, as I said earlier, I prefer teams that have a height advantage when they're on the floor rather than being at a height disadvantage.
Yeah, because then if you're at height disadvantage, you got to play a little bit harder because you can't teach height.
Right, because the scheme's got to be different. And, so we'll see. There's still a few more roster spots that need to be filled anyway. But it's the rotations on this team look like they're going to be interesting to watch for some. There's going to be some great battles at some of these positions.
Yeah, I think that will
be fun.
I think you're going to see a really great battle at the point guard position. What's going on in the front court. I don't know if it's going to be so much of a battle for who starts, because there's kind of a convention in who starts, where I think Sean Feltz probably starts at center, but like it'll be kind of a battle for like, and also working together, like, because it shouldn't so much be a battle as it should be figuring out how to work together. Like, can Carson Templin and Will Hornseth be a viable 2-man front court? Getting Sean Feltz to work in tandem as well with either of Carson or Will in that front court, because that way you can have a bit of a length advantage, like having a 6'11" and 6'8" guy in the front court at the same time and be a really, be a viable offensive and defensive unit. That's something the Aggies have struggled to put together in their lineups for like 4 or 5 years. They've not really had a lineup like that. Usually they're kind of starting with the 6'11", 7-foot guy, but then they're quickly ushering him to the bench so they can bring in their 6'9", small ball center. I think the Aggies being able to have a taller lineup, like say you have a Sean Feltz, Carson Templin, and Kingston Tosi in the front court. Like that is a 3-4-5 combo in the rotation that they have. I don't know when the last time they've had a rotation like that, like a lineup like that that's truly viable. Like maybe when Jalen Moore was here, if he was playing small forward in some lineups, like they haven't had that kind of length on the wing in a while. So we'll see exactly how that shapes up. But there'll be more commits coming. We got to take a break. When we come back, well, I ask you about Solomon Callahan. We get to talk about him.
No.
They continue this conversation, getting some more of Eric's thoughts on these recent Aggie transfers and how they'll all likely end up fitting together. So that's coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Nominations are now open. Last year, they did a really cool thing. They were able to provide 5 complete heating and air systems to families in need. Well, they're even amplifying that this year. They want to give away 10 complete systems. So nominate a deserving family for 2026. And they want to give away to a full system to 10 deserving families in our community. You can nominate a family today. Just go to mtnvalleyhvac.com, mtnvalleyhvac.com, and nominate a deserving family today.
So we're talking Utah State basketball commits. There were ones earlier in the week, or like, I guess the very beginning of the week. Sunday's technically the first day of the week. So.
Yes, it is.
So AJ Bates, we talked a little bit about him. Eric, you're really excited about him as the guy who will likely be the starting point guard and run the offense really effectively. And provided this is my, I always have to chip this in. I keep having to keep him humble by telling him how much his efficiency sucked. But so long as he gets that up, like he would be an amazing point guard for the Aggies in the realm of Darius Brown. Like that's his playmaking, and there's potential for him as a scorer. But they also signed Solomon Callahan out of
Wright State.
Wright State, that's right.
Yeah, this is so what?
Then a tournament team.
Yeah, and Wright, Solomon Callahan, a shooter, a lefty, which is unique, a little bit different. And sometimes it takes defenders a little bit of time to adjust to how to defend a left-handed shooter, a guy who likes to shoot from beyond the arc, and not so much a distributor as he is a shooter, but he's got a good stroke in the film that I have seen. This is a guy who helped his team win their conference. They were the number 1 seed going into the conference tournament. They won the regular season. They ended up winning the tournament, went to the NCAA tournament, faced Virginia as a 14 seed, and played them pretty tough. In fact, they had a first half lead, 43-38 over Virginia. So you got Mason Falsliv, who has tournament experience. You have Carson Templin, who has tournament experience. You have Will Hornseth, who has tournament experience. You have Solomon Callahan, who has tournament experience. This from just this year. In addition to a coach and coaching staff who have tournament experience. Of course, then you've got the redshirt freshmen for Utah State. They did not play, but they prepped. They knew what the experience was like. They helped in that whole experience. They got to go to the venue. They got to see everything that was involved. So yes, they don't have on the court playing experience, but they're familiar with everything that goes with it. So there's a good core of this Utah State basketball team that has NCAA tournament experience. And as I said earlier, there are a lot of players on this team. They may not come from P4 programs, but they come from programs that are used to winning. They know how to win. They understand how to win tight games, close games. They understand the value of playing hard and what happens in a close game in finding a way to get a victory home, on the way, in a tournament. So there's a lot of value in how this roster is getting put together, even though there might not be that many guys who have that P4 experience on their resume yet.
Yeah, and we'll see if they end up adding, because they're starting to run out of roster spots. Of course, Dalton Forsythe teasing potential commits on Twitter. We'll get to that in a second.
There are more to come.
Yeah, there are more to come, and in a pretty big hint that I think I think a couple other Aggie fans have figured out already. But a few texts on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. I think we also had a YouTube chat. We had some from ABC123 where he's saying, I'm definitely most excited about Will Hornseth, proven a high major production, 11.9 points per game, 4.8 rebounds, 2.4 assists as a sophomore starter on an MVC tournament champion that made it to the NCAA tournament. I think Will Hornseth, amid obviously wants for a power conference transfer, and I think the Aggies should add someone in that realm. But I think there's people that are overlooking. There's people that are still saying, hey, want another 7-foot center. We want 6'6", 6'7" wing. We want to, and I think more particularly,
I want a 6'7" wing.
Yeah,
who played at a Power 4 conference and averaged 12 points a game.
Yeah.
Even like a
6'6" wing who averaged 3 or 4 points per game, because you're gonna get if you get an MJ Collins who he was kind of the high end of your points per game scoring that you would get. You might look at an E. Martinez, who I think was at 3 or 4. That's the kind of power conference transfer you get, just to get someone who has that kind of high end potential because of the athleticism and skill set.
The opportunity to see the floor regularly.
And I think the Aggies should go after someone like that, someone with experience, someone who's in their 3rd or 4th year that is finally looking for that opportunity. That's someone that I think they should ultimately be looking at, especially when you're getting to these last few spots where it's you're going to start running out of guys that you can get that are going to have, AJ Bates averaging 12 points and 6 assists per game, Solomon Callahan averaging 10 points per game. You're going to run out of those transfers. So start taking some flyers on some guys. That's where they may end up adding a power conference transfer. Some other texts, 6391 saying, I'm excited for Tosi. He was the freshman I was highest on last year before he redshirted. Yeah, I honestly, my early thoughts were that he was going to play and that Adlan Elamine was going to be the one to redshirt, if I remember correctly.
Right, the stuff we saw in the summer, it's would it be Elamine or Tosi? One of those guys is going to make it. The other one's going to have to redshirt because there just won't be enough space.
Yeah.
So Tosi had a full year of development, seeing everything that's required to play and compete. And so I'm excited to see him actually take the court.
Yeah. 2603 saying, also, Eric, did Jason tell you he almost got into a fight 2 days ago? Not really a fight.
No, it's all good.
We got into a debate, a heated debate.
There's always give and take in sports talk.
Yeah, there's always some back and forth.
Yes.
Mention Dalton Forsythe. He was getting prodded by Aggie fans saying, and I think he said that there were 2 players signed, to sum up some of the tweets he was sending out. And he dropped one where he said that the other signing goes by Big Maple. And when I used the AI chat thing on Twitter to like summarize the tweet and I prodded it a little bit, it brought up a kid from Chattanooga, a center, a name who I've heard is apparently been on a visit. What was his name? Colin Mulholland, 6'11" center, redshirt sophomore from Chattanooga. So
adding some size.
Yeah, we'll see if that's the signing that could be coming in the next day or two. Again, maybe I said maybe we were in the valley of the gap between commits, but it very much seems like we're going back to one of those peaks where they're going to come in bunches.
Yeah.
So they could be adding another center. To tell you the details, if this is indeed the individual, I'm not reporting anything. This is a speculation based on what an AI bot told me, which they are very likely to hallucinate. I had to prod it because it initially said it was probably a Canadian player that they were referring to because Big Maple.
But Dalton Forsythe, for those who still unaware of who he is,
you shouldn't be unaware because he's working. He's doing a lot of the NIL and
helps with the contracts and the recruiting and the financials for Utah State athletes. But as we said, he replied to the Ace Reiser announcement saying, still got a few coming. And then people were like, signed already? And there's an announcement coming. And then which he replied, one has been signed, another signed today. So who knows? We might see another announcement later today.
Yeah.
Or sometime tomorrow. But
yeah, the kid from Chattanooga, in 17 minutes per game, he averaged 7.5 points, 3.5 rebounds. So tells you a little bit where they're adding some size and potential production. And a kid who also tried his hand at shooting 3-pointers, though he wasn't particularly good at it. He shot 27%. So, yeah, the Aggies I think they're looking for another player in the front courts to add depth there. Because while you have Sean Feltz, you have Carson Templin, Will Hornseth. I think you like to add another kind of center, 7-footer or close enough to a 7-footer, 6'11" or so. Get a little bit more length, have depth at center, at kind of a true center position. But I think they're also probably going to look for one of these last few spots of guys who are likely to be in the rotation. You're probably looking for another wing, a player in that 6'5" to 6'7" range, but they may not end up being able to get that. Like, it's hard to get those kind of players. So don't just assume they're going to get that. They may end up leaning back toward finding players that are 6'3", 6'4", guys that will play on the wing but are a bit shorter. I mean, Solomon Callahan, he's going to play on the wing. He's going to play shooting guard. He's not going to play point guard. He averaged like an assist and a half, and as I've watched him, like, that's not really his game. He's the guy that is out there to shoot 3-pointers, and he is really good at that. And that's the thing that he's going to be assigned to do when he's on the court. And he's likely going to come off the bench. Like, imagine him as Colby King. Not as good on defense from what I've seen, but imagine Solomon Callahan as Colby King, but more volume. Like, Colby King didn't take a ton of 3-pointers, but that was something that Colby King was good at, was shooting 3-pointers. But Callahan will do it at a higher volume and, maintain a really solid efficiency. So that's kind of where we're at with the roster. We're probably for the Aggies, they're probably going to be at 12 players on a 15-man roster by the start of the weekend, if rumors are to be believed. They're already at 11, verbally committed or otherwise.
Yeah.
They may be adding another, probably like when we sign off. That's probably when another player will commit at 6:01. So
yeah, of course,
that's probably gonna how
as soon as we go off the air.
That's we got one during the show, so we at least got one during. So like we can't complain about them always breaking news when we're off the air because we got one during the show. Yeah, but we might get another one once we go off the air.
Roster's coming together. Portal is closed, but there's still a lot of players out there available.
Yeah, and a reminder. And I saw somebody. It wasn't an Aggie fan, but it was somebody else that I follow. Where I saw a post where there was an announcement that some player, it wasn't anything, I think, Pac-12 related, it was just some other player saying they were entering the portal, and someone's like, well, how did they enter the portal? Okay. It's probably there probably aren't actually going to be any more players entering the portal from here on out, but like, because we are, I think, now 2 or 3 days removed from the close of the portal. But so long as a player put their name in the portal and got that submitted before the deadline on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Mountain Time, midnight Eastern Time, so long as they got that in, they are in the portal. Now, they might not publicly announce it because people will confuse like the announcement on social media is the moment they enter the portal. No, that's the moment they announce it on social media.
Right.
I saw a football player announce he was in the portal like a week and a half after the portal closed. This was last cycle, not this most recent one in January. They can announce it whenever they want. They could have entered the portal on Tuesday and not announce it until May. I don't know why you would, but you can do that. So just because somebody's only announcing or only leaking it through transfer portal, Twitter account, whatever, just because it's being announced now or tomorrow doesn't mean they entered the portal after the window closed.
Yeah.
It's just that we're going to see a bit of a trickle of guys who were literally 11:59, putting their name in the transfer portal, but there aren't going to be too many of those. And so at this point, it's pretty safe to say anyone who hasn't entered isn't, but there are going to be a few fringe cases. Just keep that in mind. If you're confused, how is a player entering the portal after it's closed? The answer is he didn't. He entered it before it closed, and it's only just now announcing
making it public.
So that's the key. We got to take another quick break. When we come back, let's shift a little bit toward NBA playoffs. Thoughts on that? Of course, if you have any other texts you want to send in about this topic, keep talking about Aggie basketball. We're willing to keep going with that, but
You guys okay with McKay Hillstead?
Yeah. Yes, that's true. Actually, you know what? We're going to talk about, because I put that on the schedule and I completely skipped over it because we didn't get a chance to hear Eric's thoughts about the spring showcase. So check that. We're not talking NBA.
I know, it all sounds like old news now.
Yeah, see, that's why I forgot it. So Eric's going to rehash another old topic. We're going to talk Aggie football, his thoughts on McKay Hillstead, spring showcase, because you were there. That was basically the last thing you did in Logan before you headed down to Vegas.
Yeah, I went to the spring showcase, did the post-practice interviews, went home, grabbed my bags, and started heading south.
Yeah, so let's get Eric's thoughts on that. We'll kind of rehash a little bit of that with the spring game talk. Aggie football. We don't need to talk NBA just yet, if at all, on the show. So that's coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on back into the Full Court Press. And if you need help with your golf game, try out Birdie's Golf Lounge, 650 North, 870 West in Logan. They got a swing AI coach system. So if a human hasn't been able to help you, maybe AI can be actually useful in some specific areas, like analyzing your swing. Birdie's Golf Lounge. So they got this AI coach system. They have these Unicore i XO2 launch monitors. They got a bunch of cameras, all this fancy tech stuff. And they got 2,000 courses available that you can play. They use all the LiDAR technology so they can accurately map out these courses that you're playing virtually. So all this top-of-the-line equipment, launch monitors, all these different things. They got leagues and competitions, so you can, if you're already good at golf, you don't need the AI helping you out. You can just join one of these competitions. Yeah, they got national and local prizes. You can have there's memberships and hourly public bookings available. And through April 30th, so you only got about a week to take advantage of this deal. They've got early birdies pricing, $129 a month. Normally this is like a $260 value. You can get it for about half that. In no monthly contracts is before opening. So make sure, again, check out Birdie's Golf Lounge. For those of you getting into golf, you know, the weather's turning, but like say it's raining, go check out Birdie's Golf Lounge.
I think there's more of that rain to come next week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going golfing outside on Saturday, but me and my brother have been talking about maybe going here to go to play inside, especially during the winter months. Let's get to the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. If you have any thoughts, text 435-339-0321. We're going to get Eric's thoughts on McKay Hillstead being named the starter, as well as anything else from the spring showcase. So I'm going to preempt you by having 5662, their text, saying, honestly not feeling great about Hillstead as the starter, feeling even worse about the O-line. Not sure the offense is going to be able to do anything behind a bad O-line. Defense has me excited, though.
Yeah, a few things on that. Bronco Mendenhall made it clear that, look, the offense struggled in the spring showcase largely because he didn't have a full, healthy offensive line. He had some guys in there that were playing starter-type snaps, but were not ready for starter-like snaps.
And we're just playing all the snaps in general, so it was getting worse as the scrimmage went along when you only had about 8 guys that were able to play.
Yeah, so you have to take that with a grain of salt. I think the offensive line will be okay, but there are legitimate reasons for concern. And I am a little concerned about the offense for Utah State. I think that it looks like it's going to be a run-heavy offense right now. Now, in the spring, defense usually is ahead of the offense. And in the summer and in the fall, when you get all the offensive line back, you get a healthy roster, more reps with the quarterbacks and wide receivers. That'll be interesting to note if how much that changes. But when you look at just functionally what they did in recruiting, they brought in some big dudes to be lead blockers. And the way they use their tight ends. So there was some passing to the tight ends in the spring showcase, which was nice. It's good to see that. But it looks like this is probably going to be an offensive scheme that's going to be more power run based, which helps set up the pass. So it's not the end of the world. It's not like there's not going to be any passing going on. But it was clear, and I had my hunches, and if you listened before the spring showcase, I kind of tipped my hand to what I've already seen. But it makes sense that McKay Hillstead is the starter. He appeared to be the most refined quarterback of those who are here. Now, there's one more who will show up this summer, but
he's a freshman. So.
He's a freshman, so he's already behind.
Yeah, unlikely to unseat a season
yeah,
veteran.
It's very unlikely. So McKay Hillstead looks like he is the best or most consistent thrower. I don't know if he's the best at like running the ball. If you're in a run situation, well, then you give that to Brosterhouse.
Yeah, I think they're going
that dude can pick up yards.
I think they are going to bring in Grady Brosterhouse on a regular basis. Like, he will probably play in every single game.
Yes.
Because he's going to be used situationally as a runner in short yardage situations. But like, the guy can also throw. So like, don't just bank on him running the ball every single time. They're going to keep some teams on their toes.
Yeah, I agree. He has potential to throw some passes, but he wasn't as accurate. He wasn't as efficient. I know there's a lot of members in the fan base that were really excited about Maryland. I think that he shows some things that he can do, but he's not ready. There were a few times where he was in a jam and he found ways out of that jam, either with his feet and scrambling or a sidearm throw to get around a defender to get yards and keep the play going. So there's some things that he does that were interesting and intriguing, like, I could see this could be interesting with this guy. But he's not ready. He's not ready to be the number one signal caller for Utah State.
Yeah.
McKay Hillstead is and in my mind clearly is the starter. But you're right that doesn't mean that he will take every snap. There will very much be packages where Brosterhouse is going to be on there under center. And that doesn't necessarily mean that McKay Hillstead is underperforming. It's just that based on where they're at situationally, Brosterhouse is the best guy for that because of his size. He's got a big body. He can take a hit. He can move things forward. Yeah, and he can still throw the ball a little bit here and there too. He's not a bad thrower. But McKay Hillstead's the QB1. But they still have a lot of work they need to do with the wide receivers and with Robert and I and get more refined and quicker on decision making. Because right now this offense, it needs help. I am nervous about how this team is going to get up and down the field if they need to be in a catch-up quick situation. If they can ground and pound, great. I think they're in a great position for that. I like the running backs. I like the lead blockers, the rhino position. I think they're okay there. But if they have to be in a situation where they're down and they have to get caught up quickly and do that solely in a passing game, I'm a little bit nervous about that right now.
I'll be honest, as far as quarterback play, if we are looking at McKay Hillstead on an island, and I'm not worried about his ability to play quarterback. He is, debatably the most talented quarterback in the locker room. Like, we're talking about this nebulous talent, like arm talent and overall ability as a quarterback. Like, the only other player who's kind of arm talent and overall potential kind of compares is Caleb Maryland, but as you detailed, and I agree with you, he's not ready.
Yeah, it was obvious. The size and speed of Division I college football players that's not what he's used to.
Yeah, well, and then just reading the game and it being more complex.
He'll get there, but he's not ready right now.
Yeah, so like super talented, but you got to have some time to work. McKay Hillstead has had more time to work. He is ready. He is a capable Division I quarterback. You put him and like Bryson Barnes next to each other. Like, McKay Hillstead is a way better thrower. He doesn't quite have the same just intangibles as far as like just that toughness and maybe put the team on his back kind of mentality that Bryson Barnes had. But McKay Hillstead can be an all-conference quarterback. The only concern I have is durability that's tied to how many sacks is he going to take. There's also the Bryson Barnes, like, he would have thrown for like another 400 or 500 yards on the season if he didn't spend so much time laying on his back.
Yes.
And so my concerns with the passing game aren't really about the talent of the quarterback or the wide receivers. I feel like those are adequate. Like, at least, I don't know if they'll be all conference, but I think they're adequate. My concern is the offensive line going to pass block well enough so that McKay Hillstead can do his job? Because if he's given enough time, if the Aggies have a roughly average pass blocking unit, I think they will be perfectly fine in the passing game. I think they will have a good passing game, one of the better ones in the conference potentially. But I'm not confident in the offensive line from what I've seen so far. I haven't seen the improvement. Okay, they weren't healthy. All right, I'll give you a little bit more time before I, make my final critiques. But look, that same excuse isn't going to fly in fall, because even if it's true and your offensive line isn't good because it's injured, well, you got to go out there and play football anyway. So put up or shut up on the offensive line. So we'll see exactly how that goes. We got to take a break though.
Yep.
When we come back, we'll get to some pick six. We also skipped a bunch of 9 through 5s texts on accident. Didn't mean to do that. They are about some of the basketball topics we were talking about earlier. So we'll get to those real quick, but we'll also reveal pick six. Also, who won last week? Actually, I didn't prepare any new pick six lines, actually.
I think I have one written down.
Okay, so we might actually push new pick six to tomorrow. So,
there you go. That's fair.
We're not back in shape yet. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back into the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, and streaming online at 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app and on YouTube. The Fan at KLGN is where you can catch our show every day, video if you want. And a few texts from 9315. These are on basketball topics. One saying this new commit, talking about Ace Riser, reminds me of Jordan Barnes with the ability to make and take shots. Also saying CSI is an underrated sports school. Yeah, apparently they were like, I gave them credit for like beating Snow College. Apparently they were ranked, someone mentioned them on social media being like the number 2 team in junior college. They may have been ranked even higher. Obviously they beat Snow College, who were like top 10. But yeah, CSI is a really solid junior college.
Yeah, and junior college programs are a great way for people to get their feet underneath them.
And there's also a lot
speed of the game. They get to fine tune their game. They get guys who may not really get on a roster or at least not get in a rotation. Go to a junior college and they can see the court a lot, and then they just move that up into the next level. And we've seen a lot. There's a lot of case studies out there, cases of guys who started at junior college and moved up and didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
Well, shouldn't be looked down upon because they went to a junior college first.
Well, and with all this craziness with the transfer portal and like a bunch of guys coming back to college and all this eligibility and extra years being played by guys, there are a lot of really talented high school players who would otherwise be contributors, maybe as freshmen or sophomores, be really good recruits, and they have to go to JUCO because there's no spots left in D1.
Flat out coaches at big programs saying we are not recruiting high school anymore.
Yeah.
We're just recruiting the portal.
So JUCO ends up being a really good place to pick up talented guys, like players who have the talent to play Division I basketball, but there weren't enough spots for them, or just not the right spots. Also, 935 saying the secret sauce for growing, because we're talking about players' heights, saying it's Aggie ice cream. And then also talking about Ajay.
Might help him grow a little?
Yeah, might help him grow a couple extra inches, get above 5 feet tall.
5338 texting in pick 6 line. Who retires first, Alex Ovechkin or LeBron?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can tell you right now, Alex Ovechkin, I don't know a ton about him, but he almost strikes me as the guy maybe similar like Tim Duncan, where he just kind of like one day is like, yeah, I retire. LeBron James is going to be like, he will do the full retirement tour.
Oh my gosh.
Like he will make
everyone will know.
Yeah, he'll make the biggest media deal out of it, and
Ovechkin made it sound like this was probably going to be his last year, but then he has made some comments here more recently, like my kids are like excited about me playing, and I think you should keep going. And he's still effective when he's on the ice.
Yeah, still getting goals.
Yeah,
most goals of all time in the NHL. We're not going to get to the new pick 6 because I forgot to make my lines, but I do have last week's pick 6 results, which we were supposed to get to on Monday, but Eric was gone.
Yes.
So these were our pick 6 lines from last week.
Our audience has been impatiently waiting.
I'm sure.
See how well we would predict.
This one was total goals for the Mammoth and Blues game. This is the regular season finale for the Mammoth. I set the line at 6.5. I took the over. You took the under. There were 8 goals in that game. So I go up 1-0. And then this one was who would have more combined points and assists in the play-in game between Charlotte and Orlando, Paolo Banchero or LaMelo Ball. You picked Banchero. I took LaMelo. And Banchero had 36 total points, rebounds, and assists. Melo had 30. So tied 1-1. The Sunday game 1 between the 76ers and Celtics, I had Neemias Queta combined points and rebounds. I set the line at 16.5. You took the under. I took the over. Well, I marked this wrong because I said I got it right. It was the under. 15. He had 13 points, 2 rebounds.
Oh.
So you go up 2-1.
Okay.
And then now I gotta change this now because this is wrong. I did that wrong. So Sam Merrill, 3-point attempts in game 1 of the playoffs. You set the line at 6.5. I took the over. You took the under. He only had 3. So that ties. That puts you up 3-1. Then Neemias Queta blocks and steals in that same game once. We had 2 Neemias Queta lines. You said at 2.5. I took the under. You took the over. He had 1 block, so that makes it 3-2. Then Mammoth shots against Vegas in game 1. You said the line at 25.5. I took the over. You took the under. They had 33.
Oh, they crushed that.
So we're tied at 3 apiece. And then RSL goals against San Diego. You set the line at, I believe, 1.5. And I took the under, you took the over. They scored 4.
Yes.
So they beat that one by a little bit.
Oh, Real Salt Lake.
So that's pick 6, and Eric wins that one. That'll be it for us today. Make sure to tune in tomorrow.